Oh, you're right. Hello. Glasses out. Oh, you're right. Yeah, I'm good, thanks. You? No. No, I feel bored most days because I don't get work very often. So I'm just I'm at home doing nothing, and it feels so boring. Yeah, I'm same. Hello, otherwise you're right. Ouch. Oh, oh, thank you. That sounds like a good idea. Oh, we got too much. I'm really annoyed at my hair at the moment because the last couple of weeks, no matter what I do with it, it's been flat. And I had layers cut into it and everything, so I don't know what I'm doing with it right now. when I eventually get a garden, I'm just gonna be letting it most of it go wild because I want to encourage activities with bees and stuff. And I actually want to get a pond because I had a pond at one of my old childhood houses, and we used to get frogs. I want to do that. Hello. Yeah. But I'm just hoping to find somewhere big enough. Oh, that's awesome. For everyone that's coming in, you can call me Animus. Yes, I am a Goth, and you have strolled into my political life, which is Goths for Centrism. I usually do religious Q&As on over the weekend, but I've had to put a pause on that because I've got crunch time doing a course, so it's just once a week at the moment. I'm focusing on my political life because I run a Facebook page called Goth Centrism, if you haven't guessed. So if you guys want to talk about politics, and I mean talk and not debate, because I want to try and avoid debating, because I want to know what people's views are, so we've got common ground, stuff like that, and I can literally talk to anybody. Animus is Latin for spirit. Animus is the masculine form of it, but it can also be unisex, and animus the female form, but animus is interchangeable. It's generalized to mean spirit, so it's the world of the spirit, which is kind of ironic because I came up with it long before I came back to Christianity or came back to God. It just because I came up with it for my art business, and it's just kind of stuck. And it kind of fits in well with what I'm doing now. Better now. Sticking up. Hi, Ratio, you're right. I'm completing a TA course in level 2, which means once I'm level 2, I can then leave agency work, and because I'm at agency work at the moment. And then once I get level 2, I'll be able to leave and get full-time work because schools ask for level 2, level 3s. And I potentially am going to be doing level 3 as well, which means I'll be able to cover classes, which I kind of technically been doing anyway, because I do it at church, and I covered it in work as well. Oh, nice. Yeah, there's different types of psychology. Is it like a generalized course covering it? Oh, that's cool. Is that to align with the work you're doing at the moment? Nice. How is that going, by the way? Oh, nice. I actually considered at one point doing art therapy. But it at the time, oh, that's a shame. Yeah, I wanted to do art therapy at one point, but I was told at the time that you could literally be in education for about 5 years. And because I needed to focus on art first, I had to focus on that. But then as the years went on, I found that I am the one that needs to do art therapy because I entered bereavement. So I don't think I'll be any good teaching therapy. I have got my real eyes. These are my real eyes. You're probably seeing reflection on my glasses. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, it sucks. Obviously I'm not as bad as I was a few years ago, because I actually won't go into that actually, because it might trigger some people. No, these are real. Unfortunately. Yeah, it is. If I go up close, you can see they're real. Yeah, they're real. Oh, we can't actually see the thing now. And now my stand won't stand up. It won't stand. Stay still. Fucking technology. No, they don't. No. This one I got as temporary one anyway, just to test it out, because I know I can get there is a version of it that I can get extended, so I can eventually do my art with. So I can actually just twist it around, and then you can see what I'm doing art wise. But I have not got around to getting it yet. Hi, Carrie, you're right. Hello. I'll just turn my thing around. Yeah, I'm okay, thank you. Just a bit tired because me and my partner have been out all day, practically, with his son. That's cool. It was a race today. Hello. Oh, you guys will find this funny. Me, my partner, and his son all wear glasses. We all wear glasses that are magnified, right? We went into CEX, which is a UK gaming shop, to have a look around in it, and there was a old school game that my partner was interested in, and he couldn't see the title, He couldn't see the title. Then he asked asked his son to check, and he couldn't see the title either. So I went to get my glasses out and then checked the title, and we all couldn't see the title. And we had to get a member of staff to actually show to us what the title of the game was. But all three of us were wearing glasses, or needed glasses at least, and we still couldn't see it with the glasses on. Centrist politics is basically where you are. It's a version of being moderate, libertarian, equalitarian, where you are literally in the center of right wing and left wing politics, and depending on the issue that is being discussed, a centrist will agree or not agree. No, it's not left or right, it's literally smack bang in the middle. So as a centrist, I will agree on the viewpoint from a right wing person or left wing person, depending on what I agree with individually. And if what they're saying makes sense on either side, I will agree with it. But where we do not agree with is the extremism of the right and extremism of the left. So I do not agree with leftism at all, because leftism always leads to extremes. And then you got ultra-right, which is the extremist form of right-wing politics. And then if you look at the way they both work, it's that they are literally a circle, or a revolving. Yeah, they're a revolving circle, because even though they're far right or far left, they share the exact same views, and they just feed into each other. And so the centrists and the moderates, libertarians, egalitarians, we sit in the middle and go, no, we're not into extremes. At least I'm not. Though I have spoken to radical centrists who are extreme centrists, and that to me is an oxymoron, because I don't see that existing. It doesn't make sense. Yeah, basically, yeah, they do, yeah. This is why I do believe in the what do you call it? The deep state. I do believe there is truth to that, but I do not believe everything, or I don't believe all the propaganda that comes from it, because it's not black and white. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it too, but you many Christians may disagree with me, many LDS may disagree with me, but I've come to the realization that it will not be in our lifetime. We are forever being prepared for it, because we need to be prepared for it, but it will not be in our lifetime. Because actually, there's not a member of the church, it's not a member of our church, that's what they say, but it was from another denomination of Christianity that said every generation has an antichrist, because Satan doesn't know when Jesus is coming, so he has an antichrist in preparation for every generation. Oh, I haven't even been off the camera for flipping 10 minutes. Hello. I just realised that I had a prompt prepared for Political Live, but I forgot what the prompt was, so I now have to remember the prompt and remember it for next week. Ouch. Hi, Rachel, you're right. Oh, I did see this morning about the guy that was unalived by a black man in the UK um who okay, see you later. I'm just gonna say this to everybody that comes in. Yes, it did see it on the news this morning about the young man that was unalived yesterday and arrested for racism by his killer, and I find that absolutely disgusting. That they arrested the victim. Being in this life makes us ask, why is that? The symbol behind me is is scales, and it's a symbol of justice. So if you look at the court system, they have the scales, but I chose this particular one because it looks like a cross. It literally is the Celtic cross. And I put a bat on top because I'm a goth. And we like bats. Basically, it's all part and parcel of it, yeah, because I just find it horrible that that poor man, unalived, thinking he was unalived, you know, and he was unalived, thinking that he was going to be, he was being accused of racism when he was a victim of racism. I don't think that's right. What does this mean? Where's the correlation between the highs and centrism? I created Goths as centrism because I wanted to counter the extremism, the leftist extremism that is happening within the Gothic subculture, because a lot of modern Goths today, especially ones on social media, are saying you can't be goth unless you're liberal, unless you're this, unless you're that. And a lot of the goths that I've spoken to recently, they are not liberal, they are not leftist, they're like me, somewhere in the middle, or apolitical, and I mean apolitical as in they're not political, they're not. They're more like independent. They don't vote for either side. And then I've met conservative goths, those who align with conservative or Republican viewpoints. So the reason why I created it was so that there were people like that able to have somewhere to go. No, apolitical means that you're just not interested in politics. And I can understand why, because if you look deep enough, they are one of the either side of the same coin. It's like when you, I mean, I'm probably going to get my life taken down at some point over it, but if you look at the Bohemian Club, it does affect everyone regardless. But if you look at the Bohemian Club, which is a club that was founded in, I guess about the 50s, when you look at the early guest list that went there, you had Republican and you had Democratic political people or political leaders going in and mingling, as if there was nothing wrong and they didn't actually hate each other. And it showed to me that in some ways the political divide is just a show. They don't actually have any real political hatred towards the other. Yes, I agree. That's why I'm a centrist, because I don't fully agree with everything that is said by the people who are right wing, and I don't fully agree with everything that the left leaning people talk about. So depending on, I mean, the whole point of centrism is to be pragmatic. So if something that has come out that is beneficial to the people, I will support it. If it's not beneficial to anybody, I won't support it, regardless of what side it's coming from. No, I'm not even from the US, so I don't vote. Actually, no, I don't. I used to vote for the Dem, but at the moment, I'll break it down. I used to vote for Labour, Green, Liberal Dem, but I haven't voted them for a long time. I voted for the Conservatives, and I've recently voted for Reform. And when Restored get high enough in numbers, I'll be voting for Restored from now on, because I voted for Reform when Nigel Farage wasn't leading the party, because when he left, they became centrist, and I shared a lot of their values. That with I can't remember who the previous leader was before he came back, but when he came back, I got put off. I wasn't interested in what they were coming out with when he was leader or is leader, so I'm abstaining from voting at the moment. No, I never voted for UKIP. They were useless, absolutely useless. And that was with Nigel Farage in power. When so no, I never voted for them. At the moment, with Nigel Farage in power, Reform is being treated like a protest vote, whilst when he wasn't leading the party, they actually did have a good manifesto. Restored has a good manifesto. And I do like Robert Lowe, because he has been an MP for a long time, and he understands what's being said in places. So he's got a level head to me. Whilst Nigel Farage, no offense to him, he's all mouth. He's all charm and all mouth. Ow, being blinded by an ambulance. Yeah, and I don't like Restore with Nigel Farage in power. When if he goes, I'll go back to voting for them. But even if Labour sort themselves out and get rid of Keir Starmer, I do not like Keir Starmer. I do not. Once I don't even like his replacement, Angela, either. I don't want either of them leading the Labour Party. So once Labour get their act together, I might reconsider voting for them again. But so far, I don't see any of the parties other than Restore actually having any Kemi. Who's Kemi? With the Equality Act is a replacement for the Human Rights Act, and the Human Rights Act already had in place what Equality Act was already talking about. And prior to the Equality Act, you had the Disability Act of 1995, and what Equality Act talked about in that act was being talked about in the Disability Act 1995. So these, I think, even can go as far forward as 2005. So the Equality Act is just a replacement for those two acts, but if you take away the Equality Act, you still have the former acts that can be reinstated, and the people will not be affected at all. Oh, green. From what I've heard from former Green MPs, because I used to know somebody who was a Green MP when I was in my old hometown, they started kicking out a lot of the older generation, including the guy that I knew, and now a lot of the Green representatives, they do not represent the English community. And from footage that I've seen on the news, like GB News and stuff, there are a lot of Green MPs who are incapable of speaking English and therefore cannot be interviewed because they do not understand English. So there is a cultural and lingual divide in the Green Party representatives now, because they are using the Green Party to push Hamas propaganda. And I do not support Hamas. GB News is more, they're a lot more centrist than people make them out to be. They're nothing like Fox News. Fox News are definitely right of conservative. I mean, I don't get on with a lot of Fox News stuff either. I find them useful because you actually have people going in and actually trying to talk to people. Well, from what I saw a few years ago, there were some left-leaning reporters in there, classical liberals, so they're not right-wing. Not all of them, anyway. They're just against the rubbish that's coming out, and there is a lot of rubbish coming out of politics at the moment. Oh yes, media does sway a lot of things, but I do not always rely on media. That's why I go for centrist or even slightly right wing or slightly left wing stuff. I look at a mixture of stuff. What I'm saying is that a few years ago, some of the reporters that have gone over to GB News were actually identifying as classical liberals. They are not conservative. So they have classical liberal values that do not represent what modern liberalism is today, because modern liberalism is leftism. because they've embraced extremist politics and therefore really do not. I'm not really liberal anymore. Because today's classical liberals are technically libertarian now. They're nothing to do with the modern left. Precisely the point. It's now what classical liberalism is. Classicalism is today is now classical conservatism, because the liberals have gone further left, and they've gone further extremist left and become leftists, and they've infiltrated the liberalism. So therefore the old school liberals, they literally now have no place to go other than more classed as right-wing politics, because there is a literal crossover now. How is it abstract? Because you can say that with politics overall, everything is abstract. Because there's different levels of conservatism. Not every conservative political view is the same. I mean, if you look at socialism, there's different types of socialism, which then led to communism, Marxism, communism, fascism. They all originated from an earlier form of socialism, and there was even a form of socialism that came before utopian socialism. So it's literally all a spectrum. So that is what you class today as centrist. So they're individualist, which is what originally anarchism used to be. Anarchism used to be closely linked with liberalism, but they... Hi Bob, you're right. Now why say that's what I'm now saying. Centrism is now become a part of old school libertarianism. Because what centrists are talking about now is what classical liberals used to talk about, because they've been moved to the centre or further right, to the conservative side, because the left have gone further left. And individualism actually incorporates individual liberty, because it's about individualism, of being individual, so somebody can take power over their own liberty. Yes, which is what I'm saying. The classical liberals that we're talking about now is exactly the same as they were before, but the modern liberals are not the same as the classical liberals. And it's the classical liberals that are pushing back, because it's like, you're taking things too far now. Because we do not, what you're worrying about, we do not need to worry about. That's why when I was mentioning the Equality Act itself is a fusion of two different acts that, if removed, those previous acts can be reinstated, and the people will still be protected under those acts. Yes, precisely. That is precisely the point. They're now classed as conservatives now by the modern left wing people, because it's sticking to older values, when the values of the far left are worrying about, they do not need to be worrying about. They don't. because it's about them worrying about how does life affect me, and therefore how do people see me, and I want to influence how people see me and deal with me, when everything that is in place in today's law already does that for them. And therefore they're looking at it from a very isolated perspective. It's like, how does everything affect me, when they're not taking on board the bigger picture, which is what politics is about, is seeing the bigger picture and stuff. Yeah, that's right. I do agree. I mean, for me, I'm even though I'm of the generation that should be taking on board modern liberalism, progressivism, and stuff like that, I I'm more politically aligned with the older forms of politics, because I have briefly studied laws and policies for the course that I'm on, and just from an individual standing point, because I'm doing independent study on it. It's the things that the modern politics is worrying about, which is about more than often than not identity. What they're worrying about is already covered in the laws and policies. They're already protected under those, therefore they do not need any more done, and therefore they are losing sight to the bigger picture. It's like the reason why I do not support the Democrats, the American liberals, is because the things that they are complaining about Trump doing today, now, like in terms of the Iranian war or Iranian dispute that's happening now, Hillary Clinton in 2008 was saying, I want to boom Iran. I will so happily blow it up. And that was 2008, and that was her representing the Democrats. So American Democrats or American liberals, they complain because a Republican is doing what they want to do. If they were in power, they would be doing the exact same thing Trump is doing. This is why I do not support or do not agree with the majority of American liberals, because they are whining about something that they would have voted for. But they want to be the ones in control over it and not Republican. So it's literally just tit for tat. No, I know she's not. Not anymore, no. But this is from 2008, when she wasn't even in power, but she was supporting the Democrats and saying, if I was in power, I would be doing this. But then because Trump is doing it, they're complaining about it because they want to be the ones to do it. But it's not them, it's a Republican. If they were in power, they wouldn't be complaining. Oh yes, I can completely do that, because they are doing the exact same thing now. They're still complaining because they do not like the fact it's Trump, and then they're saying, oh, we shouldn't be having to go to war with Iran, when Iran are unaliving their own people, and they are threatening to bomb on the boom. They're threatening to boom elsewhere. So I am fully in support of what Trump's done, because it is time the Islamic regime in Iran go. They need to go. Yes, it was 17 years ago, and Hillary Clinton saying she wanted to boom Iran because of the Islamic regime, which was in practice then. and still is in practice now. So nothing's changed in Iran, but it was the Democrats. They would have done it. If Trump wasn't in power, they would have done it. And then they still would have expected people to support them. And you'll probably find that the Republicans would have supported their decision, because we all have a common enemy, you know. What is the history of Iran? I can take you very far back if you want. The blockade on the strait you want open and was open to begin with is illogical. What do you mean by blockade was straight and want open? So in the 50s, the progressive governments of the UK, America, Canada, and I believe even Israeli progressive governments, not Republican, progressive, all co-aligned to destroy the monarchy from the inside by encouraging the Iranian monarchy into creating soldiers in the similar way of the brown shirts to gain access to the oil, and therefore place the Islamic regime, will actually introduce the Islamic regime in existence in Iran. So it is the governments that are responsible, but it's not the conservative or the Republican governments are responsible. It's the opposing side. That is why they say if you look at the history of communism and Marxist socialism, which you can take back to the 1920s, they have close alignments with Islamic regime or with Islamic extremism, and that has been long before the 1950s. For the time being, yes. Thank you. Yeah, I'm good, thanks, Darko. You're right. He was never convicted of anything. And I've actually seen the trial case, by the way. I've actually seen the documentation. He never was convicted. Because to be convicted, you have to go to prison. He's never been in prison. That's the whole point of being called a convict. You have been imprisoned at some point. If you're not been in prison, you cannot be a convict. He wasn't found guilty. Trump. He was told to pay reprimands. And I've actually looked up the case. This is the issue that I'm having. He had a civil case over something that should have been a criminal case. Why would a criminal case be taken to a civil court? Why did the limitations run out? Why did they leave the limitations to run out? Yeah, with Michael Jackson, talking about Michael Jackson, it wasn't actually him that wanted to settle. it was he wanted to take it to trial. But it was his ex-wife Lisa Marie Presley and I believe his estate that said no, we settle. So if he had been allowed to take it to court, we wouldn't have had the 2005 trials, because you cannot be legally convicted of the same crime twice. No, I don't. I'm not saying that at all. I looked up the actual case, and the trial that happened. I actually looked into the documents, and it literally was a settlement. So he cannot actually be convicted of anything, because to be convicted, you would then have to go to trial. You have to go into prison, because there is sufficient evidence for you to be taken. This is why I find it strange that she didn't take him to criminal court, because if she took him to a criminal court, surely more people would have spoken out, because it was Donald Trump. He was a big name in America, like Michael Jackson, big name in America. When people knew Michael Jackson was going to court, people who hadn't even been abused by him and lied about it went and claimed that he was abused. They would have gone. They literally went just because it was Michael Jackson on trial. No, I personally think Michael Jackson's not in the brain at the moment. Donald Trump should have taken this woman to criminal court. So the very fact he had to pay his settlement was an error in his part, because he should have taken this woman and the other women who have since accused him to criminal court to clear his name properly. Because this is why I think Michael Jackson went wrong, because he shouldn't have made a settlement. What is insane about me saying Donald Trump should have taken the women to criminal court and they should have taken him to criminal court? What's insane about that? Because it would have cleared, if he was actually guilty, he would have actually been convicted, thrown into prison, and they would have not only got financial compensation, but they would have been proven right. A civil court is not the correct way to go. Like Johnny Depp with Amber Heard, right? He should have never taken her to civil court. He should have taken it to criminal court, because he had sufficient evidence that she physically assaulted him. But because the Sun got involved, the newspaper The Sun got involved and started slandering him, accusing him of things, because they sided with his ex-wife, he had to do it the civil court way. But that case was meant for criminal court. Why am I putting my second pair of glasses on? What am I doing? What? Yeah. So 34 women. 34 women have accused Trump of assaulting them. If they all got together, they can actually literally take him to criminal court, to have a criminal court case. Because with that many women saying the exact same thing, the courts can't ignore them. And if they can't do it because it's California, because I know about the laws in California, you can't produce a defamation case, you take it to a different state. But they would literally be financially supported to take this man to court if he was actually guilty, because it's Donald Trump. He's a big name. This is not centrist. Yes, it is centrist thinking. I'm literally being as logical as I can about it. No, I'm not. If he has 34 felonies, why isn't he in prison? Because surely, with that many felonies, the court should have overrid that and got him in prison. Why didn't they do that? So is it less his fault and more the court's fault for not actually following through with that? Well, you look at what happened with Nixon. He got removed from office because of Watergate. He got removed from office for what he had done. And he hadn't assaulted anybody. He had literally done other things that were probably less evil than what Donald Trump has been accused of doing to women. So him being in office is not an excuse, surely, because Nixon didn't have that excuse, and that was in the 1960s. He was literally removed from office and forced to abdicate from office because of the crimes that he had committed. Well, could you explain how it works then? Because I'm going by little bits and pieces. I'm going by little bits and pieces of what I've read. Like in California, you cannot take a defamation case to a court because they are against defamation. You cannot accuse somebody of anything in California. So I know that for certain because Marilyn Manson had to take his court case elsewhere after being falsely accused of assaulting a woman, which was his ex. Oh, please no, Alan, no, please. Please no, 6-7, no. Please do not use cult. You're using cult in the completely wrong context. It doesn't. It means something completely different to what you think it means. No, it's not a cult. The word cult means open knowledge. The word occult means secret knowledge. That is what it actually means. So any religion that exists today that has its doors open to the public is a open knowledge building, because it is teaching people things of their religion. That is a cult. What you're talking about is an occult, which is secretive, and therefore secretive knowledge. Therefore, cults who take away people from their families are actually occults, because they are practicing things in secret and taking people away from their families, so they cannot actually have any communication with their families, and therefore you do not understand or do not know what they're teaching these people. That is an occult. So when people call it a cult, they are using the wrong context. The modern definition of a cult is a butchery to what cult actually means and what an occult actually means. When you talk about the modern definition of a cult, they're talking about occultic practices, which is secretive practices, and this is why the cults, or the modern definition of the word, are actually occults or occultic, because they take people away from their families and they go to isolated locations, so you cannot actually know what they are teaching people. So, I mean, you look at what's happening in China with the gulags. That is an occultic practice, because people are imprisoned there and are being rewired to believe in the political practices of China, but how they are actually doing it, we do not actually fully know what they're actually doing. So they are occultic in a way. Well, this is why I don't believe in. This is why I think some modern definitions need to be done away with, because modern definitions do not make sense a lot of the time. Because if you look at the root word of something, the modern definition means something completely different, which does not actually explain what the root word of the root of the word actually means. Have a good potato. So do I. So do I. Courage, did you want to come up still? Oh, okay, it's working.
So basically, the reason that Trump is not in prison right now, he was found guilty of 34 felony counts, and that was right during the election cycle when he was running for president. Had he not been elected president, he would currently be in prison today as a result of those 34 felony counts that he was convicted of. The problem is the American people voted him into office, and because he was voted into office, he is now the president of the United States. It's a different process on all of that. So he has actually been impeached. Nixon was impeached twice. Nixon was impeached when he was in office, and he was removed from office because of Watergate. In Trump's first administration, he was impeached twice, the same way that Nixon was. But they decided not to vote him out, or not to remove him from office. Trump is concerned now that there will be the possibility that if the Democrats take over in the midterms, which is looking more likely based on what we're seeing in the electoral vote, that he will become impeached again, and that they will have the power in the Congress to go ahead and remove him from power right now. So that is very important to our system. But the reason E. Jean Carroll didn't go after him in criminal court is because we have a statute of limitations on grape in the United States. It has to be reported and it has to be prosecuted within a certain time frame. If it's not, then they can't go after him criminally. The only way to go after him is civilly. Trump, so she wrote her book, she accused him of the grape. He said that he didn't do it. He sued her. He was actually found civilly liable for grape. The judge called it a grape in the court case because he forcefully penetrated her. Whether by himself or by another object, it is still a forcible penetration.
Right.
And he was held civilly liable. He was made to pay her out as a result of that. He wouldn't have had to do that if it didn't happen. It happened. It happened. And Trump has multiple times said he's bragged about sexually assaulting women in the past. He did it on the hot mic on the Billy Bush video. Billy Bush had more punitive actions taken against him for that recording than Donald Trump has ever had as a result of that. And that was the famous quote where Donald Trump said, "You can grab him by the pussy." And that is gross. They let you, he said. They let you. No, if a woman is letting you, it doesn't mean that she wants it. Sometimes it means that she has gone into a state of freeze, which is one of our natural instincts as human beings for survival. For survival. Women don't let people do these things. And that's why there's such a big movement now for women to say, "Me too," or to push back and not acquiesce to men's desires or whatever, because we don't have to. We don't have to. Our system is gross, and defending the predators is gross. It's gross. The men know what they're doing, and they've been doing it for years. And women don't come forward because when we come forward, we're re-victimized. We're blamed for what's happened to us. We take on more blame as victims in those situations than the perpetrators ever see retribution for. So, or see punitive actions taken against them for. So that's why women don't come forward. There should be no statute of limitations in the criminal system for grape victims. Many women don't even realize that they're the victims of grape because there's a psychology that goes into it as well. Women blaming themselves for it because they did freeze. They did have that psychological reaction where they froze, or they're used to hearing people tell them, "Well, what were you wearing? Why were you in that location? What did you do to cause him to react this way?" It has nothing to do with what she did. It has everything to do with him and his mind and where he went with it. She is not responsible for the actions of him. Trump should not be in office today. Unfortunately, he is. Unfortunately, he is. He was found guilty and convicted on 34 counts. You do not have to go to prison to have been found convicted. That would come in the after phases of the court systems. They find you guilty and then they impose the sentencing. There wasn't an opportunity for the sentencing to be imposed in the situation of Trump's court cases before he got elected to be president of the United States. And when he became elected, they couldn't move forward with that.
Why, considering of how much evidence there was against Trump, why couldn't the courts put something in place to delay him getting into office until the sentencing had been completed? Why did they not have the authority based on the evidence alone?
That I don't know. You mean, why can't they delay it until after he's the president of the United States?
No. What I mean is, why couldn't they have put something in place to delay the presidency results so they could actually finalize sentencing in order to prevent him from becoming president?
Because it's not part of our legal system currently.
Why is it not? I would have thought that would have been part of the system.
I mean, this is something that's new. This has never happened before, where somebody who was in court for criminal actions was actually running for the United States, the presidency of the United States of America. That's never happened before. This has never been a thing until Trump. You know, felons they can't vote in our elections.
I'm aware that they can't vote.
So, as a convicted felon, he wouldn't even be allowed to vote in our election, but he can still be president of the United States of America.
That's
problematic.
There has been no other situations before Trump that has had that situation happen before.
Yeah, there's been no reason for that law. And I think most people wouldn't even think that there would be a need for that. Because when you're voting, it doesn't seem like you're going to vote for the felon. You would vote for a level-headed candidate in the election. Like, why people voted for a felon over someone who has been on the legal side of the court systems in her career path through the system is unbelievable. Unbelievable. And that's partly due to the misogyny in our country, and it's partly due to the racism in our country. It kind of depends on who you're talking to with regard to why they couldn't bring themselves to vote for her. But it definitely was not as a result of her experience or her qualifications. She was overly qualified for this position. She was significantly more qualified than Donald Trump is.
Oh, you're talking about Kamala Harris. Okay.
And I believe if she was the president of the United States, that we would not be moving into all of these quote unquote conflicts. I would refer to them as wars, but we're not referring to them as wars for reasons. Because a president can't start a war. He doesn't have the authorization to do that. Only Congress has the authorization to do that. That's why they're calling these conflicts and not wars. No, this administration is extremely problematic.
I'm aware of that. Because they are calling it a conflict and not a war. Because I personally think we're just using war and conflicts as interchangeably, but because it's classed as a conflict, a president can lead that. But yes, you are correct that wars cannot be started unless the Congress agrees. I do agree with you on that.
We're supposed to have checks and balances in this country, and the checks and balances have not always been working the way that they're supposed to be working during this administration. There have been times where they've gotten it right with the checks and balances, but there are definitely things that are broken, and people are afraid to take the actions that they need to take, that they're required to take, that they took an oath to take, because they're afraid of this administration.
Why are they afraid of this administration? Is it a very long story, or?
No, I don't think it's a long story. I think these are dangerous people that we're dealing with.
Well, considering if I recall, Nixon was he Democrat or independent?
He was a Republican, I think.
Republican, okay. Well, I'll use Nixon because I thought he was Democrat. But if we look at Bill Clinton, he was a Democratic president, and
he was. Yes.
You look at what damage he's done, and especially his connection with the Epstein files. So, is it kind of biased to say that all Republicans are dangerous when there are dangerous individuals in the Democrat Party as well?
When it comes to the files, I think everybody who's in the files should be investigated. So if Clinton is in the files, I didn't vote for Clinton. I didn't support Clinton when Clinton was in office. There were things that
Yes, I remember
Clinton
you
did
saying that
good,
you're
and there were things
conservative.
that
Yeah,
Clinton did bad when he was in office.
yeah.
Um,
That's
but
the thing.
if he's in the files, yes, investigate that, hold him accountable. If Trump is in the files, yes, investigate it, hold him accountable. I don't care who it is that's in the files. If they are guilty of the things that they are being accused of, they should be held accountable for those things.
But when using, the reason why I brought that up was because there seems to be a bias towards all Republicans, all Republic representatives as being dangerous people, just because many people do not agree with their politics. Yet there are dangerous individuals in the Democratic Party as well, and
I would
therefore
agree. There are
you can
dangerous people in both
say that
parties.
the reason why, like for example, the reason why Kamala Harris was not supported as a Democrat representative as president was because of what she did towards the Latino prisoners. She was responsible for falsely imprisoning Latino men in the 90s and the 2000s for crimes they hadn't
Uh,
committed, and it actually caused a huge problem in the prison system because there were people who were falsely accused of, I believe, is drug use when they weren't actually guilty of drug use, going into these prisons and overcrowding it. And I believe, if I remember correctly, it came out also that Biden was involved in something similar with the African American community. So that is why a lot of African Americans couldn't support Biden as president, because he had committed problems against the African American community, and why Kamala Harris wasn't supported because what had happened with the Latino community. So this is where I'm going by, is that if we look at it realistically, it's nothing to do with the political sides. There are dangerous people in all political representatives of both parties, and we cannot be legitimately biased towards one or the other, because not every person who is democratic is actually good as a president representative, and nor is every Republican in office a good representative as president.
agree to some extent. So I don't know about the situation that you're speaking of with the Latinos and the Black community, and I can certainly investigate that further. But with regard to there being bad people on both sides, I would say the difference between the Democratic Party and the Republican Party is that the Democrat Party is more likely to hold the dangerous people on their side accountable. For example, when the individual, I can't remember his name, maybe a tide of silence, you can think of it off the top of her head, but we just recently had a Democrat that was accused of inappropriate relations with his staff, and the Democratic Party immediately took action to say, no, we do not condone that behavior. We do not accept this individual, and he has resigned his role. There was another Republican candidate from Texas, not candidate, a congressman from Texas,
Mm-hmm.
um, Tony Gonzalez, I think his name was, that
Mm-hmm.
that he had inappropriate relations with his staff, one of whom ended up unaliving herself as a result of the damage that he caused her.
Mm-hmm.
And he no action or stance was taken against him to no punitive actions, no repercussions at all with regard to what he had done until after the Democrats had taken steps with this other Democrat that held office to say, no, we don't approve. then the Republicans would come to us and say, hey, see, it happens in your party. And the Democrats said, hey, but did you notice how we took care of that? And the Republicans, they don't really have a leg to stand on at that point because they're not taking care of their own. They're not taking care of their own. The two parties are not the same. There are bad people in the parties, but how the parties are handling those situations is different. And we can see this. The first time that I noticed it was when, what was the Saturday Night Live guy that was in office, and just during the Me Too movement, and just a picture of him came out where the picture was intended to be comedic in nature, but it showed him, with his hands kind of towards a female's chest. And the Democrats said no. And he ended up resigning his position because he lost all of his respect from the Democratic Party. And that was the first time that I noticed it, but I've noticed it multiple times since then. I do not ever see it happening on the Republican side of things. So I wish I did. I really, truly wish I did, because I think that our country would be better off if we did hold our leadership accountable, because we've got generations that are looking up to these leaders that, I feel like as a single woman in the United States, that voting Trump into office has made me significantly less safe, because men will look at this presidential candidate and think, I can get away with anything. I can do whatever I want and still become president of the United States of America. It's not going to impact me negatively at all. And to a great degree, it doesn't. It doesn't. Women are afraid to come forward. We're conditioned to hold it in, to keep ourselves quiet, to not talk about it again, to not report it. When we confide in some of our friends and family, we're blamed the same way that E. Jean Carroll was blamed on this live for the actions taken against her. It's not. When you're fighting a losing battle, is it worth coming forward to the court systems to be re-victimized in the press, in the media, in the court system itself, when no action is going to be taken against your perpetrator because the burden of proof is on you? And how do you prove, like, your instincts of freezing? Yes, I froze. Or, in many situations, what you'll find is women that relent. Relenting is not consenting. A man who continues to push and push and push and push and push until they get what they want. That was not a woman consenting of that action being taken against her. It's a relinquishment of her will, possibly for survival, possibly just to get out of the situation.
I'm not disagreeing with you on that.
Yeah. So, that's what people are up against. That's why when you say things like, not you specifically, but when people say things like, well, why did they let the statute of limitations run out? Because many people view it as a hopeless situation, that they're never going to see any justice brought against their perpetrator as a result of them coming forward. It's just going to make their lives harder in society. That's why the statute of limitations start to run.
I wasn't actually specifically talking about the alleged victim per se, but it was not less to do with her, but the people around her also. Why did the people around her who were supporting her, who were meant to be supporting her during that, allow the limitations to run out when they should have actually supported her and pushed her?
Yeah, many women are still going to be silent about it for a long time after the fact. There are women that don't even recognize that rape has occurred to them until decades later. And then they hear something similar happen to another woman, and they can see it in that situation, but they can see in that situation what they would never allow themselves to see in their own situation. And sometimes that is what snaps them into recognizing, oh, Or they hear someone else refer to that scenario as rape, and then they say, "Oh," in associating it with their own situation and what's happened to them in their lived experience. "Oh, that happened to me too." They're calling it rape here, and then they put two and two together that they were also raped. So,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, there's a
That's
number of
common
reasons
for
that would happen.
women who were raped as children,
Uh-huh.
or boys as well.
Or even as young adults, or even as
Yeah.
older women. Like, sometimes it takes an outside perspective to see what's happening. So, I mean, yeah, I think it's really unfortunate what we hear with the E. Jean Carroll situation, because he was held civilly liable for it in a court of law. And the judge referred to it as such, that it was a rape. But we still have deniers of it saying, well, he would be in prison if he raped her. That's not true. That is not true in all cases. In fact, I would say in most cases, it is not true. It's more likely.
Is that more an issue with how the court system works?
It's multifaceted. I would say it's the court system. I would say religion plays a lot into it. The shame culture, the purity culture. I would say how we're conditioned as humans. I mean, from the time that I was a small child, we don't talk about the bad things that happen to us. So you don't talk about it. We're never going to talk about this again. That's coming from the women in your life as a child. So you're conditioned to grow up not saying things. And when you do say things, when you've been victimized in some way, people have a tendency to say things like, well, what did you do to deserve it? What were you wearing? Why were you there? Were you drinking? Why were you drinking? You know, rather than putting the actions on the person who committed the assault. Mm-hmm. And also you get people who will say, don't say anything. It will ruin that person's life. Ruin their life? What about the way in which it ruined the woman's life, or has the potential to ruin the woman's life? I mean, we are conditioned to make it to make the safe space for the predators and the perpetrators, and create an unsafe space for people that they are victimizing. And that's wrong. It should go the other way around. We should be creating an unsafe space for men who think it's okay to sexually assault women the way that Trump does. He brags about it. He bragged about walking in on locker rooms of young teenage beauty contestant pageants. He's bragged about sexually assaulting women on the Billy Bush interview. He's bragged. I mean, this is a common thing with Trump. We've seen it in multiple locations. And people are excusing the behavior because it's easier to excuse the behavior as locker room talk than it is to hold the person accountable.
I don't know about the Billy Bush interview, but I have looked into the interview about the pageant situation, and there was a disproportionate amount of accusations of the women, some women from the pageant saying it happened, and there was more women saying that it didn't happen.
Those women that say that it didn't happen might not have been in the locker room when it did happen. I believe based on the character of Trump, based on the accusations that have been brought against him, based on his braggadociousry about it, he went on to Howard Stern and bragged about it. The shock jock laughed it off and joked about it. But, those were out of Donald Trump's mouth. He's gone on The View. He's talked about his relationship with his daughter. He's talked about, he was asked a question, what do you share in common with your daughter? He said, sex. This man is not a good man. He is not a respecter of women. How has he treated his wives? How has he treated women that surround him? He's not a good man when it comes to women. And I think it's more likely than not, when I apply Occam's razor to the situation, that he did the things that he's accused of doing. When it comes to women, I would be exponentially more inclined to believe the women over him. He's has a history of lying. I'm not even certain he knows when he's lying, or if it's just a habitual thing for him at this point. If it just comes out naturally, he lies continuously, and we have record of those lies.
Well, my stance on this is that I'm going to we're all going to have to see what happens after this term is over, because from what I understand is that no person can be accused of the same crime twice. So if there's going to be more allegations to come after he leaves, then we will see what happens from there.
Yeah, I
Because
think there will be
then
different.
we'll
I think there will
know
be
what's
different
really
crimes that
going
he's.
on.
Yeah, I think there
Because
will be
I
different crimes
do,
that he's convicted of.
yeah, because I do find it strange that to compare from Nixon again, is that Nixon was removed from office for the crimes he committed, yet for some reason Trump hasn't been. So that to me is odd. If the allegations are,
It's odd. It is
yeah,
odd. I
it is
grant
odd.
you that. It
I
is
do
odd,
agree.
but
Yeah,
it's not because he's not guilty. It's because our society and what we allow in our society and what we will accept and tolerate has changed. And we are living in a dangerous time right now in America. Um, I think we're going to see it change. I think Trump will be impeached. I think he will be removed from office before his term is up. I hope he is. Um,
is it in talks of being of a third? Is it a third impeachment now happening?
it would be a third impeachment. He had two
Are we in
impeachments
talks then?
that were successful in his first administration.
Yeah.
And yeah, and he should have been removed in the first administration, but people like Mitch McConnell couldn't find his spine. He couldn't find his spine enough to impeach him and remove him, but he did speak out against Trump's actions after they decided to leave him in office. But that is not sufficient, Mitch McConnell. I'm not a respecter of you for that rebuke of Trump when you didn't hold him accountable for his actions by removing him from office. And you didn't encourage your party to do that. So, yeah, I mean, we have people in office that are starting to find a little bit of their backbone because their positions and their seats are being threatened right now with all of the midterms coming up. So I think it's too little too late for those people. Yeah. But yeah, they have been shielding a very bad man. And they have made America less safe. They've ruined our relationships with allies. They have, yeah, it's awful. It's awful what's happening here. I hope it's not too late to correct it. But certainly the misinformation that's coming out on the right and the propaganda, and there's a lot of propaganda, it is not helpful.
Coming from a centrist viewpoint, there's propaganda on both sides. That's why I am. This is why I am in the middle, because the left and the right have been both guilty of
But
pushing
it doesn't,
propaganda.
respectfully, it doesn't seem like you're in the middle because you often take the side of Trump. Trump is a very extremist on the right side. So while I agree with you that yes, there's propaganda on both sides, I can say I am a Democrat.
When it comes to Trump, I do not agree with everything that he says, because if I was a ultra-right person, I would agree with everything that comes out of his mouth, and I do not. However, the things that he has currently done when it comes to dealing with religious extremism, I do support, but I do not support him based on as a person alone. It is the actions that he's doing to fight against
It's not
religious
about religious
extremism.
extremism. It's not about a religious extremism. That's the propaganda that he's pushing for the extremists in religion here in the United States. It has nothing to do with religious
So
extremism and
you
everything to
don't
do with oil.
agree. So you
Mm-mm.
agree what the Iranian extremists are doing to their own people.
No, I didn't say that I agree with anything that extremists are
But
doing
this
to.
is what I'm saying. How can it be propaganda when the Iranian people themselves have been saying what their own government are doing to them?
This has boiled down to oil since the 50s. You know, in Iran in the
Yes,
50s,
and
they
many Iranian people, many Persian people have unalived trying to get them out.
to
But
get who out? To get the regime out, is what you're
yes, the
saying.
regime, yes.
Yeah, I think that's the propaganda that we're being fed. But when you
What is propaganda
start to
about
look
the
into the,
regime? What is the propaganda about the regime?
I find it very fascinating that here in America they would say, well, we're protecting the protesters in Iran that are protesting the regime. Really? Because here in America, are you protecting protesters who protest against the regime? Here?
How would you?
It's not a
What
protest.
would? What
America
would
is
be
not
the
in this to
regime? What
protect
would be?
protesters. America is not in this
Sorry.
conflict to protect.
How is what? How would you describe an American political regime?
How would I
How would
describe it
you
as a
describe
regime?
what is happening in America as a regime?
Because I believe that we have an authoritarian in office.
How? What makes his actions authoritarian?
What makes his actions authoritarian? Well, in Los Angeles, when he sent the National Guard out and the Marines out to Los Angeles to fight against protesters, that is not something that we do in America. When he did that same thing and sent the border patrol up to Wisconsin, that is not an action, or Minnesota. That is not an action that we do in America. We do not turn the government on the people in the United States of America. The way that this administration is trying to turn the government on the people in the United States of America. We would not, if anyone else had been in office, we would not have seen Renee Good get shot. We would not have seen Preddy get shot. They would not have been murdered. We are allowed to have our First Amendment right and free speech in America. Mm-hmm. We do not turn the government on our citizens. That would be a regime that does that.
With Regina Good, footage. I've seen the full footage of both sides.
Yeah, I've seen the full footage from multiple angles.
And of her side, what's happening her side. It was her wife that encouraged her to drive, and because the ICE officers were in front of the car, trying to talk to her and say to get out of the vehicle because she was obstructing the road. The wife told her to drive, and she drove over.
She didn't drive over anyone.
ICE officers, and he panicked.
She did not drive over anyone. She didn't hit him. She didn't hit him. She may have encouraged him to drive because
he had to move his foot away just before the tire got to
moving his foot does not give him the right to shoot somebody dead in America. That is not a thing here.
In his eyes,
he had already had that happen to him in another situation, which means he's putting himself into unsafe situations.
I from my personal standpoint, I think both sides were in the wrong. He shouldn't have shot at her, but I can understand why he would see what had happened as an attack on the ICE officer. An attack.
You can see from the videos. There's multiple angles of the videos, and the videos show that he was
seen the multiple angles.
Yes, and they show that he was out of the way of the vehicle. Which bullet killed Renee Good? Let me ask you that. She was shot 3 times. Which of the bullets killed her?
The bullet that hit her neck.
What number was that?
She bled out from the neck.
What number? Was it the first bullet, the second bullet, or the third bullet that killed her?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure which number it was. All I know is that it's the one that hit her neck that unalived her.
It was the third bullet that killed her. By the time he fired that third bullet that actually killed her, Was he still in harm's way?
It depends on what type of gun was it.
It doesn't
Was
depend on
it
the
was
gun at
it
all.
was
It
it
has
was
nothing to
it
do
a
with the
single
gun.
shot or was
The
it a
shot was
multiple shot?
fired through the passenger side window. If you're at the passenger side window of any vehicle, you are not in danger of being hit by that car.
No, that's what I'm trying to gauge. What type of gun was it? Because some guns shoot one shot, others shoot multiple shots. So
He
if he
fired
shot a
3
multiple,
rounds. He shot the gun. He fired it three
was the
times.
gun automated to fire 3
He
shots
pulled the trigger 3 times on the
3
gun.
times?
And it was the third bullet that went through the side window. So he was not in harm's way. He's still standing. He's not hurt at that point. And then after he fires that shot, he called her a fucking bitch.
Yes, I know that. I did hear that. That's why I'm saying that on both sides there
Has
was
any
wrong done
action
on
been
both
brought against
sides.
him? Has he been tried in a court of law to determine if he's guilty or innocent of his actions? He has not. He is not. He's
No, the
currently
thing
back
I
on duty.
saw was that he had been investigated. He had been investigated, and then they found that he was in the right. And I personally don't think he was. I think, but he shouldn't have fired because he fired and unalived her. Her car caused property damage to another person's car, and so I do not agree with that situation. But
Officers are not supposed to put themselves
my
in the.
stance on it was is that it was the wife's fault. The wife shouldn't have told her Regina Good to drive away from the officers.
I don't think it was the wife's fault at all.
She said, "Drive, baby, drive."
Even if she said drive, there is no reason that Renee should be dead.
No, I know she shouldn't have died. I don't think she should have died. I don't think her death was wrong, but her wife caused that because she shouldn't
Her
have told
wife
her to drive
instinctively
away. She
knew
should
that
have
she was in
told her
danger because the gun
stay
was
and talk to
already
the
being
officers.
drawn.
Sorry?
Her wife instinctively knew she was in danger because the gun was already being drawn.
The wife,
And there are instinctive
the end of the
actions that we
day,
take
the
as
wife
humans.
was
We fight,
responsible.
flight, freeze, or fawn.
The wife was responsible for her wife's death.
The only person responsible for the death in that situation is the person that was holding the pew-pew. He pulled the trigger. Not once, 3 times.
He ultimately ended her life, yes. But if the wife hadn't told her to drive away,
even if the wife hadn't told her to drive away, if she saw that weapon being drawn on her, it would be a normal human reaction and instinct. It would be instinctual that she would potentially run. She's got 4 options. She can fight him. She can leave. So fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. Her instinct was to flee.
The wife, Regina Good, wasn't going to flee until her wife told her to drive away. That's from what I've understood from the videos.
That would require the operation of her mind, and we don't have the operation of her mind. All we know is what actions she took. She was trying to run from the scene. She was trying to run away from the danger. She didn't choose to fight him because she didn't drive straight forward. If she had chosen to fight him, she could have hit him with the car, but she didn't. She didn't hit him with the car. You can see from his camera angle watching the video, you can see her crank that wheel 2 hard times to the right. She's not intending to hit him. She's intending to get away from him.
Renee Good, sorry. I'm not trying to antagonize Renee good at all, because I don't think she should have died. But the circumstances that she was in, I, from what her own family has said, she shouldn't have been there at all. But and neither should the wife.
My family would say that too if I attended a protest. My family would say, not my whole family, some of my family would be at the protest with me.
I personally think if Renee and the wife hadn't been there, she wouldn't have died, and they wouldn't have been put into that situation. So I mean, that's why I see the situation is complicated, because I do not agree. I do not support what ICE did that day, because her death shouldn't have happened. Her unaliving shouldn't have happened. But I don't think that her wife did her any favors, because of that panic, she ultimately did unalive her wife, even if she wasn't the one that pulled the trigger. So it was a bad situation for Renee to end up in, because of two people involved. But that's just my stance on it. I know you'll disagree. But we'll move on from this, because obviously it's a very heated subject to talk about. But going back to the protests overall, from the protests, I mean, I'll take it back to 2020, or even just before then, when you had Black Lives Matter protesting. The reason why, I mean, this is all happening when Trump was in power, I think, and during the first presidency. The reason why I had stopped supporting Black Lives Matter is because it came out afterwards that they weren't just protesting, and he wasn't just antagonizing them for being black, or being black protesters. It came out during the course of the protests that the protests have become violent, they become riots, and there were businesses of African American ownership being damaged during these protests, and these were Black Lives Matter supporters doing it to their properties, and that is why Trump spoke out against it, and why there were Republicans speaking out against it, because it was affecting black businesses. So that's why I personally started stepping away from Black Lives Matter, because they were supposed to be for, the life of African Americans, but in that narrative that they were pushing, they were actually destroying their own community, because they were destroying businesses, they were destroying buildings and rioting and just causing public and property damage. And that is why I agreed with him at the time as well over that, because they were not, the Black Lives Matter movement were not what they claimed to be. And then it has since come out that Black Lives Matter members, and I think it's the founders themselves, they have multiple homes, and they are abusing the donations that are going towards the foundation of Black Lives Matter to use for dodgy means. And that is one of the reasons why I supported him in that moment, because it came out that Black Lives Matter in particular were not what they claimed to be. Whilst with the ICE versus the protester situation is happening now, the situation is slightly more complicated, because yes, I have seen videos of ICE physically harming people, and that is individuals in ICE doing it. I do not blame ICE fully for that overall. However, the situation with the ICE protests happening at the moment, I think that the protests that are happening against ICE at the moment are not. That is where the propagandas come in, because they are claiming that ICE is doing this exclusively to harm migrants overall, even the legally binding migrants who come over to the US to actually economically migrate and integrate into the culture. They are not doing that. That is not the reason why they're doing it. They are actually trying to hunt down criminals who are actually harming children. But the protesters who are protesting against ICE are not seeing that and are not being
Because
told
that's not
that.
true. Yeah. It's
That
because
is
that's not
true,
true.
because I have seen ICE officers, or not ICE agents, sorry, the ICE agents actually speaking to protesters. They're not shooting them up or anything like that. They're actually talking to them, saying that if you actually supported what you are protesting against, you would be siding with us, because that right now we are trying to hunt down a criminal who is harming children, and they were literally hunting this criminal down.
The propaganda that's come out from ICE has been horrendous, particularly after the deaths of um, citizens of the United States of America, in defense of what they're doing. Yeah, I mean, what I hear what you're saying, it's not true, and I think that uh, protests in whatever form they occur, they're necessary. They're necessary. I don't promote uh, violence in any way. The protests that I've participated in have always been peaceful protests, and I don't like the idea of the use of of violence. But I do understand why there is the underlying sentiment that maybe there should be. Um, what we saw from Black Lives Matter, the Black Lives Matter movement, was different than what is happening today, because everyone has shifted in their thought process that we've got to do this together. We've got to do it peacefully. We've got to remain peaceful. We don't want to give them any reason to use any footage that they have here against us or against the movement. And it's a collective effort by everyone. And what we do know is that peaceful movements have a tendency to be more successful than movements that contain any type of violence in them. Where where there where there have been any situations of violence, there's also a lot of information about the agitators from the other side of the aisle coming in. I went to a protest earlier this year that maybe it was last year, I don't know. But there was a guy, a right-wing person there with a mask on, dressed up like an ICE agent with a bullhorn, and screaming at the protesters and making claims about how immigrants aren't welcome here in America. And that's not true. We do welcome immigrants in America. There's a subset of our people that are not just racist, but supremacists. And they have a different stance than other people in the United States. The Democrat Party isn't necessarily against the immigration system needing reform. Yes, the immigration system needs reform. But what is happening now is not that. What is happening now is violent extremism. And, we had, they created a tent location down in Florida that they called Alligator Alcatraz, and they joked about feeding immigrants to the alligators. Like, there is nothing humane about that.
No.
There's nothing humane about what's happening right now under this administration with the immigration system, and what they're claiming is not what they're doing behind scenes, and they are brazen and recording the conversations that they're having about these things. Alligator Alcatraz, uh, look up what happened to that. Look up what happened to the immigrants that were there, and do a little bit of research on that. And now, where are those immigrants that were in Alligator Alcatraz? What happened to them?
I'll try and look it up now because it will take me
I
out.
mean, while you're away, because I think you can still hear me while you're looking that up, but like, they're using children as props to lure their parents out, like the little boy in Minnesota. And they sent them down to a detention center down in Texas. And the boy got sick in the detention center. There are stories of families that are trying to see loved ones that are dying from cancer, whose loved ones are dying while they're being arrested. I mean, there's hundreds of stories coming out of these locations. It would be interesting to document them all. And what's happening is tragic.
I've just read, and this is, hang on a minute.
Yeah, or they have cancer themselves and they can't get their medications.
No, that I do agree that is wrong. Um, I've just
Whether it's
read on the
cancer or
13th
diabetes or
on the 13th of May, which is last week. Oh no, it was earlier this week, wasn't it? Yeah, earlier this week. They are going to be shutting down Alligator Alcatraz. Because of the inhumane treatment. Um, so that was what I saw from earlier this
yeah.
week. They're shutting it down, but they haven't actually gone into details as to what the horrendous.
People have also disappeared from there. They haven't been able to find their records. Their lawyers can't get a hold of them. Their families can't get a hold of them. These are not things that are being publicized by mainstream media. Simply local media has covered on them. A couple of them have gotten a little bit of traction from other news sources, but there's just so much. There's a whirlwind of things that are going on in the United States right now that even the big stories aren't getting picked up.
Yeah, I have actually noticed that myself. There is a lot of stuff that is not being picked up on. It's like with the hantavirus stuff. Turns out it was a deliberate cover up to hide what was coming out of Disney cruises, because they found a lot of the passengers on the Disney cruise were actually involved in child trafficking. And then within the last 24 hours, it came out that with the traveling photographer who did that video about being trapped on the cruise, it turns out it was all fake. He wasn't a real, well, he was a real person, but a lot of his posts were fake. And he was using AI, and it sounds like to me from what they're saying is that he actually never was on the cruise in the first place, but it was literally to cover up the fact that they were arresting people on Disney cruise ships who were involved in child trafficking. So
I don't know that I believe that it was cover up. I believe that, yeah, I believe that probably the hantavirus is real.
I think I've heard of Aaron. Yeah, carry on.
Yeah, Aaron Parnas is good. He gives Aaron Parnas is actually really good. Like some of the news articles that I have heard and look up, and um, he picks up on some of those things that other mainstream media sources don't.
Yeah, I follow people, a lot of people like that, so yeah, I'll give him a follow.
I don't know that I believe that the hantavirus is a cover up. That sounds kind of conspiratorial to me. I think it's more likely that there is such thing as
There,
a hantavirus.
there is it is happening. However, the mainstream media are making more of a bigger deal over it than the very fact that they've just arrested people on the Disney cruise for child trafficking. They've made a bigger deal over a virus which is, I know the Andre virus is human to human contact variant of the virus, and it's more contagious than when you get in contact with vermin, like rats and mice, wild rats and mice. However, they're making a larger deal over that than Disney cruise story, which is more important. But they are trying to hide that. Um, Maybe it's because it involves a huger investigation, and it's easier to say to people, "Oh, there's a virus outbreak here," because there's so much information they have to get out of the other case that they can't talk about it. But it was just odd timing that those two stories were happening at the same time. However, the media focused on one, which is really a non-issue, because if I remember correctly, hantavirus can be dealt with, and they are working on the vaccine, which they are always working on vaccine for virus. Instead of actually focusing on the bigger issue, which is the child trafficking story, because I would rather have heard that than worry about a virus outbreak, which happens every so often anyway, and the majority of most people, unless they're medically compromised, they don't unalive from a new virus outbreak the majority of the time, apart from COVID. But that was a lab based virus, that was a mixture of multiple different viruses that were deadly anyway. Whilst this Andre virus is a natural mutation, so therefore our bodies can mutate, we can mutate to that and overcome that. But they made a bigger deal out of that than a child trafficking case. That's what concerned me.
I don't know. They're both concerning to me. They're two different cruise lines. I don't see why one cruise line would manufacture a story that would hurt their industry or their business to protect
It
Disney
wasn't the
from.
cruise line that had manufactured it. It was a travel blogger who manufactured his involvement,
Well,
which
I
which
saw the travel
can
bloggers
which
video.
can actually damage the reputation of the cruise ship by proxy. But it was something that he did on his own regard. But having researched into him, a lot of his posts are literally AI made. They're not real,
even
and that.
even if that is the case, it doesn't take away from the fact that the hantavirus story is a real story. That's
Oh no, no, I'm not
that's not a
saying it's
hoax.
not. It's
Him
not.
being on the ship
I'm
may
not
be a
saying it's
hoax.
not real. It is a
Yeah.
real story. It's just considering that I think it's who have actually come out and said that it is a non-issue, because this is not actually going to actually become an epidemic scale or even pandemic scale. The media is still focusing on that instead of focusing on a larger story that is more important. Even though both can be discussed, it's the level of importance, because they can still talk about the hantavirus as like a minor story, and that the child trafficking is a larger story. that should have been headlines, which would have been headlines a decade ago,
Yeah, I
is
think it's
now being
subjective which
not.
one's the more important story. I think that's subjective. Um, because there are a lot of immunocompromised people that might say, no, I think the hantavirus story is actually the bigger story. And if you think about, the fact that we just came out of a pandemic and the possibility of going into a new one potentially, if it's not dealt with correctly, the fact that the United States has pretty much demolished the CDC, which is our way of getting good information about uh, vaccines and viruses and things of that nature. So, I mean, it's a big story. They're both big stories. I don't know that there's one that should have taken priority over the other one uh, in this situation.
Well, I'm going by from what I saw of the news a decade ago, and the Disney cruise story would have been headlines back then, and would have
Yeah,
been a highlighted story, and
it would have been, but
a new
so with the files,
viral
so with the Epstein
mutation would
files,
have
and
been like a secondary thing. So, oh, this has also happened.
agreed.
Um,
And so with the Epstein files, and so with the investigation of the ranch down in New Mexico for that,
mhm.
related to that. These are not,
That,
it's because there are so many big stories that big stories are not taking precedence. And I do believe that there are people trying to cover up those stories too.
yeah, which is this is what I'm saying. There
Or
has been an
also,
attempt
it could
to
be that the
cover it up.
media is trying to make sure that they've got all of their facts straight before they go on record about a story, because there's been so much pushback about hoaxes, or you weren't right on this, or something comes out later that shows that they were wrong about something.
Hmm.
But yeah, I mean, we've got a lot of big stories right now.
Mm. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about while you're up here?
Nah, I think I'm gonna drop. I've got to get my day underway, and I might just listen from the comments.
Okay. Well,
But
thanks for coming up, Courage.
yeah, thank you.
See you later.
Yep, see you later.
Bye.
Oh, there it is. They moved the
The
disconnect.
same problem.
They moved the disconnect.
Yeah, I'm literally when I go to disconnect from like a live. I'm like, where's the X or where's the stop button? There's always like this little corner, because on my phone it's literally at the corner right at the top, and unless if I haven't got glasses on, I can't see it. So Aaron Panez, is it Panez? Panaz. Actually, talking about detention centres, I can actually go into huge conspiracy theory during Barack Obama's presidency, because a lot of what during his presidency, a lot of Walmarts were being closed down, and from what was being rumored, some of them were being converted into detention centres. Um, and one of them had been. Don't ask me which one, because I can't remember because it's so long ago. But since I last looked it up, but it was odd. um, it's like in the UK, what's happening with the hotels. Um, there is concern that the hotels, the illegal migrants that we have, because the irony is that how the you guys in America are seeing the Republicans are doing is what we're seeing the Labour Party doing. And it's very ironic because it's on the opposite side of the political spectrum. They're supposed to represent the left of the population, whilst the Conservatives represent the right. But what you're seeing in America through the Republicans, we're seeing it from the Labour side. And with the legal migrants going to hotels, being placed there for long periods of time, and this was happening during the pandemic as well, there's now concern, and this is where I've talked about before, there's been footage of people not being able to access the hotels because they've been closed off to the public, because they are holding migrants and they are slowly being turned into centres to hold them. Yes, so I just find it fascinating that there's the concern that the Republicans are doing it to the illegal migrants in America with the detention centres and like the mess they're in, yet we're seeing it from the other side. But yeah, with the detention centres, I have read some horror stories happening within them, and this is like when I was doing research on them like a decade ago when I was doing journalism, where it was rape cases, and more recently there has been increase in illnesses manifesting there because of the close proximity of people happening, and then they're not able to, but they have been able to contain the spread of the viruses, but it has caused a lot of deaths. So from a centrist perspective, I think I do agree with the principle of detention centres in the sense that if you are, because they are the process of deporting illegal migrants. However, how they are dealt with and what happens inside them, I do not agree with, or I do have an issue with, because some of them, not all of them, have been mismanaged. I do think the migrants who are put into those places need to be treated better, especially those who are. The whole premises of it is that they're supposed to be placed into these detention centres to hold them, and like if they've got criminal background, they are investigated, and if they are known to have committed the crimes, they're supposed to receive a trial. So yeah, it's a very complicated issue. Being notified on that app. I'm gonna be heading off in 5-10 minutes because I need to do dinner soon. So if there's anybody else who wants to come up and put your view forward in the next 10 minutes, you are welcome to do so. If not, you can put anything in the chat. trying to figure out where I put my bag. Oh, it's over there. Aaron. Hi, MJ, you're right. You just missed a talk with courage. Yeah, I'm gonna head off now. So, thanks for everyone that came on and listened in. I'll be back. I'll be back. I'll be making a live Sunday next week, as I'm going to be away Friday and Saturday due to a funeral. So yeah, I'll be back on Sunday, guys. I'll see you later. Bye.